Hi, Jenny. Thanks for joining us. Can you start by introducing yourself and telling us a bit about your professional background?
Of course. And thanks for having me, Cam. This is going to be a fun session. So, I'm a champion for inclusivity in tech. I've spent the last, decade here in Silicon Valley working with a variety of different startups. I am the co CEO and co founder of Women X AI, where we're focused on giving underrepresented voices a platform, opening networks, and really accelerating the success of those voices. I also serve on the How Women Lead Silicon Valley board and actively invest in women founded startups. As a startup advisor and fractional chief marketing officer, I do spend a lot of time on mobile, a lot of time on getting the right message to the right user at the right time, and really doing some really fun go to market stuff in the app space. I currently focus on B2C Series A through D software startups and focus on helping them really maximize that revenue. How can you be innovative and strategic, and how can you use AI to do that? So I'm excited to talk with you about all of that.
Amazing. Thanks for joining again. Your efforts at Women in AI have contributed to building a major global presence. What blind spots do you see in how the mobile tech and ad tech sectors approach inclusion and AI and ML roles? And what can startups and growth orgs do today to actively close those gaps beyond hiring statements?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Cam. And I just want to applaud you for even bringing that up. I think a lot of people will shy away from that sometimes. One of the key mistakes I actually see when people are building AI products is that they're building it out without these voices in the room. They're building something that's for everyone with only a couple voices that are represented. And inclusion isn't just about who you hire, it's about who shapes your algorithm. It's about who's having those conversations of how are we using AI? Should we use AI? And I think more importantly, which AI to use and how to use it. So for me, I always recommend startups should audit who's at the table when we're talking about training data, user personas, and just the user experience in general. There's some cool tools out there. Conversa by Melinda Johnson is actually helping reduce bias in hiring with AI. And I think that that's so important because AI models the people who create it. It models our society. And if we're not being active in deciding what we should be using and how to use it, there can be some trouble. So there's things like that. There's also the thought of, inclusion doesn't have to be a cost center. It's actually a competitive advantage. And especially when it comes to AI. One of the things that I do is I spend a lot of time trying to help women get on boards. And there's a ton of research out there that when you have a diverse board, you actually have a better business strategy. And companies will do product recalls a lot faster and minimize issues that way. So think about who's in the room when you're deciding what to build and how to build it.
Absolutely. From your work at Together Labs and your exposure through Women in AI, how are you seeing AI practically deployed in lifecycle or CRM campaigns for mobile apps? And take that a step further, which use cases are actually driving LTV or retention lift versus just sounding good in a pitch deck?
Well, it is so easy to sound good in a pitch deck. It is actually harder to implement AI. So for me, when I see LTV increases, when I'm working with startups of all different sizes, it's really going back to what can you take that's a bottleneck and unlock that? You can batch campaigns and you can make them truly adaptive. You can have it be intent-based journeys and you can do that at scale. So if you find places where you're getting stuck in the life cycle, that is where you want to be able to include AI. Lifecycle flows powered by AI are so, so important, and they're going to outperform static cohorts every single time. I know for years we've been bucketing our users into a variety of different cohorts, and while that's great, you're not confined to that anymore. There's tools like AMP, which I love to use because it's the right message to the right user at the right time. What I need is a lot different than what you need, Cam. I bet our schedules are different. I bet we get up at a different time in the morning and look at our phone at a different time. We should be delivering messages that are embedded to that particular user's schedule. Now, AI isn't a silver bullet, unfortunately. I see this all the time. People are like, if I buy this one AI product, I'm going to, see a 100x return. And it's not necessarily like that because your inputs have to be good. If your data hygiene isn't there, you don't have the customer insights that you need, your output is going to be weak too.
Uh, What tactics or behavioral segmentation frameworks are you currently finding most effective in improving mobile user retention post-install, particularly beyond day 7? And are there any counterintuitive tactics you've seen outperform the classics like push notifications or onboarding flows?
Something that I see happening a lot is when you're like, wow, a push notification worked. Let's add 6 more just like that. And I actually don't recommend doing that. I recommend that hyper personalized messaging. And doing this will help you outperform the traditional push sequence. We've all been there. Your email inbox is completely overflowed. You've got a bajillion notifications, but this brings us back to the right message to the right user at the right time. It is always going to beat volume. The other thing is the behavioral segmentation. When you can do that based on intent signal versus just the activity, that's key. That's where I see a lot of magic happening. And it can be really hard when people start using AI because you have to let go of some control. You're really giving away some of your control to the AI. And that can be hard. But machine learning models, they can look at more data than you or I can, Cam, and they can understand it at this like massive scale that I can't even begin to comprehend as a human. And so it's all about collaborating with the AI. You don't want to let the AI completely run loose and do everything on its own. It makes mistakes too. But at the same time, when we can work together, with AI, that's when you're going to unlock a lot of this magic. I also see community driven loops outperforming the classic retention tactics. When you can get users to connect over a shared purpose or shared identity, they're going to want to stay in your app.
Amazing. You've worked across product, data, and marketing functions. For mobile teams trying to ship retention or monetization experiments faster, what org design or workflows have actually helped you align those teams and move quickly without killing quality or signal?
Yeah. So, what I see working here is when you can get growth marketers in these cross functional groups, when you're working super closely with product and data science. And that means before the product's even done. That means using the user data that you get to help define what you're building next and what data do you need to collect. For me, when I'm, trying to look at the experiment velocity, is how can you test things and get clear data from that? And you can iterate faster when you have basically like what I like to call like hypothesis library. And you can go through these testing sprints and get information from that and then decide what you need to do. I also think it's important to have clear documentation of how those experiments went. I see this happen a lot where organizations might not actually write that down because of course we'll remember it. Well, guess what? You just ran 10 more experiments next week. You might not actually remember. And now that we're using AI more, you're going to want to feed the results into an AI system down the road. So make sure you have clear documentation about what worked, what didn't work, and that'll really help you go further.
Makes total sense. Everyone tracks D1, D7, D30, but what's a retention insider data pattern you think more performance marketers should be prioritizing that's often missed? And how has that shown up in your own campaigns or growth loops?
Yeah, so I want to go back to what we were talking about a little bit earlier with the community side of things. I'd look at things like return sessions via peer invite or looking at reactions and comments within social features. When you can get people to connect with people, they're going to stay in your app. And obviously, it's app dependent. Not all apps have these things. But I've seen for early in app social actions, that's when you're going to be able to have a better retention. So if you're able to help users find a friend, find a community, find someone to talk to, you're going to be able to keep them in your app engaged and likely increase their spend too.
Yeah, product is just not enough, right? It's building that community within.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, I've seen communities do some really cool things. You might think that, oh, the lower price point's going to sell better, but actually, sometimes the higher price point sells better if you get the right community users from your app in there and talking about it and excited about it. So they might surprise you.
Awesome. From dynamic creative optimization to predictive LTV modeling, AI promises a lot to mobile marketers, obviously. Where have you seen real measurable lift from AI tools in campaign performance or retargeting? And where is it still mostly noise or smoke and mirrors?
Yeah. So when you give AI enough context, when you give it a lot of information, it can really feel like magic. And that's what works. So for predictive audience targeting, even subject line creation or creative optimization for copy and images, that can be really powerful if you give it the right information. You can even do personalized recommendations based on your user behavior, and they can find the right tool or the right feature at the right time. What I see on the hype side of things is, these plug and play things and like, oh, this is going to fix everything. This is going to, triple your revenue in 2 weeks. And again, it's not a silver bullet. This over reliance on LLMs with their help for copy and not including your brand safety guardrails in there, that scares me. You should always be including a ton of information about you, about your audience, about your user persona. Because if it doesn't have that, your copy is going to look just like everybody else's. And so to avoid this generic um, slop is what everyone's calling it, you need to put in more to get more out. And there's ways so you don't have to do this every time. Spin up a custom GPT, right? Train it to know what you need and what you're going to use in your app. And it will probably do pretty good after you give it a ton of context. That's a great point, Cam. It really is like a coworker. And this one just happens to not be a human, and you need to make sure that they're set up for success.
Makes sense. We recently ran a survey of marketers and found that data silos were the most common challenge for running a multi-channel retention strategy. Do you have any advice for marketers looking to overcome that challenge?
Yeah. So Looker and Tableau are great, right? But they need to have the right data sent to them. If you're looking at charts and it doesn't have the data that you need in there, there's going to be a problem. Making sure that your CDP has the right information and is piping that to where you're looking at the data is essential. Early teams need to get this right in the beginning because as you are launching an app, as you are launching a new startup, as you are launching a community, you need to be able to get all of that data and speak the same data language internally. Because if you don't, that's where problems are going to happen. They say data is the new oil, so you should treat it as such. And the other thing that really helps here is creating this curiosity culture. Encourage your marketers to query the dashboards directly. Encourage them to collaborate with analysts. Encourage them to ask questions. Your retention wins are going to come from insights that are often overlooked. And that's where you want to make sure people are curious.
Framework or even that environment for them to be comfortable collaborating where maybe they weren't encouraged to do so in the past, right?
Exactly. And when you do that, that's where you're going to unlock real wins.
Amazing. Looking ahead, what shifts do you predict will shape how mobile growth teams approach retention in the next, let's say, 12 to 18 months? Think changes in platform rules, ad tracking, AI integration, or even user behavior? And what should performance marketers be building towards now?
Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is privacy changes, right? Look at ATT, look at the cookie deprecation. I mean, I think the cookie's finally actually crumbling. We've been talking about it for years, but we are seeing it crumble. And the way that we are going to have access to data is going to be completely different. So the smart companies are looking at how can they manage their business without some of these traditional metrics, so to speak. So think about that. and start collecting your own data and using this to the best of your ability. Because when these things continue to shift and people are becoming more concerned about their data, especially with AI out there, it's going to make the marketer's job a little bit harder. The next thing is creative assets are going to be easier to create. It's really getting decentralized. Teams are using AI to co-create. They're creating with their users. You're seeing UGC, but we're also seeing what they're calling employee GC. So employee generated content. So we have the UGC, we have the EGC. And to me, I think that's so important because if you're creating content and creating community, you want to be using all the different levers that you have, which is your users. And in my opinion, also your employees and your board. You want to really be using everybody that is with your company and focus on your success in terms of marketing and reaching out. And I think that's where the fun's going to come in when you see all of these people collaborating with AI. Lastly, I think there's going to be a rise in agentic AI workflows. And agentic, for those who don't know, is when you actually give AI agency to work and make decisions on its own. Please give it guardrails. Don't just let it run wild, but it can take care of some stuff for you and for your team. So things will run semi-autonomously, and humans can still really steer the vision and the values. So a great company out there doing this is called Wayfound by my friend Tatiana. I highly recommend checking them out. You're going to see more people that have teams that are hybrid, humans and AI working together.
Well, Jenny, you're obviously an expert in this space, so I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us. How can folks who are interested get in touch with you or Women in AI, and are there any events or any opportunities for them to connect with you the remainder of this year?
Absolutely. So I would love to connect with anyone who likes to chat AI or mobile growth. You can reach out to me at womenxai.com and you can join our membership. It's free. Women and allies are invited to join. I think that's where the real change happens, actually, is when our male allies are there to support. So please come over, join us, and learn AI in community because it is so fast paced. And the community piece is really the antidote to keeping up with AI. And lastly, if you need help with marketing, feel free to reach out, jennykpollock.com, and we can talk about that too.
Awesome.